All right, and it seems like we are live, which is great. So thanks so much for all of the punctual people that are here. But please forgive me for getting confused sometimes because right now I'm looking at the laptop and the camera is right there, and there's another laptop right here. So I might get confused where exactly to look, but as long as I don't confuse what to say, we should be golden. Well, first and foremost, thanks a lot, guys, the ones that are present over here for being here. For these types of events, it's never a big crowd, but I record this, so later on I'm gonna put it out on YouTube as well. So if you would have some kind of questions that I would answer, but you might forget the answers to those questions, you could always come back and look it up. But let me get straight to the business because you're probably not here to listen to the fun stories from me, but you're here to get an idea of how to buy real estate here in Los Angeles, where to start, how does the process work, and so on and so forth. So first and foremost, I wanted to talk to you just quickly about myself. Why do I think that I'm qualified to talk about this? And why do I think, more importantly than even why I qualified to talk about this, why it could be helpful to people that are thinking about purchasing real estate? Well, simply because there is a fair amount of people that are kind of lost in a limbo. They think that they might be qualified, they might not be qualified, they don't really know where to start. And you'd be surprised how many people there are like that. So for mostly for people like that, I'm having these seminars to just give you a little bit of clarity on how this process works. So you would be very good about understanding the process. And later on, you can start stacking up the knowledge on the top of this, like the knowledge of the city. Where do you want to live? What kind of product you want to buy, whether it's houses, condos, and so on and so forth. So you can start stacking knowledge on the top of just the basic understanding of the process. And that would be a little bit easier for you to guys move along the stages. But why do I think I'm qualified to do this? Well, because I've done it once or twice. I'm actually closing another transaction. I actually closed it a little bit earlier today. So I've done it once or twice. I've been in a business for about 10 years. I have worked with a really big company called Coldwell Banker, and I've done it for about 9 years. After that, starting from last year, I have been working for myself. That sign right there, as you can see, that says Dome Real Estate Group. That's the company that I established last year, and for about a year, I've been operating it. So that's me. I'm originally from Ukraine. I've been living here in the US for about 13 years. I've purchased homes as an investment properties. I've flipped properties, which means I've purchased them, I've renovated them with the partners of mine, and I've sold them afterwards out of state. And I've purchased my personal residence here in California, in Los Angeles. So I really know what I'm talking about. And on top of this, I work a lot with buyers. That's the other very important part to this, because working with buyers is not an easy task, and it requires a lot of persistence and a lot of patience. Patience. So I think I do possess those qualities. But without further ado, let me actually get to the idea and to tell you why exactly this idea came about. So when you'll see me looking at the screen, I'm actually looking at my original concept of having this seminar. The original seminars like this I was having in person. And the first one I had about 5 years ago, because I'm reading in the script that I have, which says that I started real estate about 5 years ago. So that goes to show you that the time flies. But the idea of having the seminars came up because a lot of people have very similar questions. A lot of people don't really know what happens first, what follows after this, and how exactly the process works. So I thought it would be helpful to not just have this conversation one by one with every single buyer, because not everybody is willing to have this conversation right away. Some people are simply not feeling like they're ready to even start this conversation. So I don't want to be pushy. I don't want to be aggressive with those people, but I do want to provide this information. And for somebody that might be on a fence, so to speak, for somebody that might be getting ready to buy, I want to make sure that you guys have this information as well. So that's how this idea came about, and I do have this events in several different languages. The latest one I had was in Russian. This one is obviously in English, and the one that I'll be having next month will be in Ukrainian. So we'll see how that one goes. But I'm pretty excited about that because there's a lot of folks from Ukraine coming to Los Angeles in particular, and I want to make sure that I could be helpful to those folks. So why exactly this idea I think might be helpful? Well, because there's a complexity of this process of purchasing and selling real estate, which is pretty high, which not to say that it's the super difficult task, but it consists of many, many different stages. And I want you guys to know about those stages, what happens after what. The other reason why I think it is helpful for you guys to actually have this information is because a lot of the time buying real estate here in Los Angeles, you would have some prior knowledge. So you would have bought or sold homes in other countries or in other states. However, even if you've had this example and experience in the United States, the reality to the story is that the purchase of real estate actually differentiates in between of different states. So buying home in Florida might give you a completely different experience than buying home in California. There's certain important moments in transaction that you would need to know and pay attention to. Contingency removal being one of those examples, where in California it does not happen automatically, in Florida it does. So having a very specific understanding of this process here in California, in Los Angeles in particular, is very, very helpful in my opinion. Well, the other reason is that it's a very complex process and it scares a lot of buyers, people that might be potential buyers, but they just never make first move by being scared, by not having an understanding of the dynamics of the real estate locally. So I think it is helpful to allow somebody to overcome this fear of actually starting to look for real estate, because it's actually not that scary, if I'm honest with you. Yes, so once again, we've had this in Russian, so now we're going to be talking about this in English. How often do I have this kind of events? So lately, I've come back and I'm starting to do more events like this one. The next seminar I actually will take place in 2 days. So on Thursday, which is May 2nd, I believe, I will be talking to an attorney that will be helping you to understand how to hold title to real estate. So I would often collaborate with real estate professionals, with people that work in this industry, not necessarily in the capacity of brokers. I'm a real estate broker, but in some other capacities that have some kind of overlap with the real estate industry. So we have a lot of events like that. In order for you guys to follow those events, you could follow my Facebook page, Dome Real Estate Group. Once again, there's always going to be some kind of seminars that will be happening. But the next one is happening actually in 2 days, and it will be interviewing an attorney, which is always a good thing, because where else are you going to get a consultation from attorney for free? That's quite a rare thing. But with this said, honestly, let's get to the business, because I don't want to mess about. I want to actually get to actionable steps and actionable knowledge for you guys as far as the home buying process goes. And I wanted to talk about sequence of events. So what happens first, what to expect, what's going to happen afterwards, and so on and so forth. So just like in any kind of activity in real estate, it is very, very important to have a general understanding of what's going to happen and what will follow that and what's going to be happening after that. Just so you have a very clear idea in your head of the whole process of starting to look for real estate and ending up holding your keys. So I really want you guys to have that, because I think it is helpful for you as a consumer. Also, in my personal opinion, I think it could decrease level of stress that you would have throughout this transaction. In other words, if you have no idea what to expect, you're probably going to end up being hella stressed out. I mean, that's how it is when you just don't know what's going to happen next. When you have this understanding, that makes going through this process a little bit easier, a little bit smoother. And once again, I don't want you to have a gray hair after you purchase your first, second, third home. I want you to feel awesome. I want you to feel really excited about this process. So I think knowing what happens actually helps you guys to achieve that. And once again, if you guys could end up buying a house and actually enjoying this process, actually feeling like, you know what, something positive happened in my life and I actually got to enjoy it, this is my ultimate goal, because this is a cool part of my job, seeing how excited people are and not just how stressed out they are, because this process absolutely could be stressed out, do not get me wrong, but that probably will indicate to you that you're probably doing something wrong. I mean, there's transactions that will take it out of you. I'll tell you straight up and I'll be honest with you, but most of the time those transactions and those mistakes in transactions are very easily avoidable. So that's what I want to achieve. And also, I want to make sure that we could maximize the chances of you guys getting the property. Nowadays, it's not that easy to get a property. Believe it or not, just because you have a certain amount of money, just because you're pre-approved, does not necessarily guarantee that you're going to end up getting the house or the condo that you're looking for. So I really want to make sure that we could maximize your chances. And once again, knowledge is a huge step because it will allow you to make decisions on the go, because this is what's necessary nowadays in the current market for you guys to know enough in order for you to be comfortable to make decisions very quickly. And we're going to talk about what kind of decisions would you need to be making, and what information would I be providing you in order for you guys to actually make those decisions. But that's the general concept. And of course, the other part to it is the possibility to choose the right kind of property, because this is imperative for you guys to find the property that will work for you, not just today, but maybe in a year, in 2, in 5. We don't know what's going to happen in the future, but at least making sure that the purchase that you're making right now works for you and does it really well is an important part of why I do this type of events, this type of seminars. So let's get to beginning of your journey. A lot of the time, people would start from the points in a transaction that might not necessarily be the first ones. I want to make sure that, and once again, sometimes we would flip certain things around in real life, but ideally, I would always suggest you guys to start your search from the financial confirmation that you could purchase this property. How does it work? So let's just say you think that you're going to be buying the property for cash. It seems to be an easy way to understand. If the property is worth $500,000, you need to have 500 grand. Easy enough. However, there's certain things that you need to make sure that are happening in order for you to be able to purchase the property. The money need to be not under your pillow, not under your mattress. They need to be in a bank. Why is that important? Because when we will be presenting an offer for the seller and we will be saying, Mr. Seller, here is our offer. So we want to offer you $500,000 for your beautiful condominium here in the Studio City. We would need to provide what's called proof of funds. Proof of funds, for the lack of a better term, this is the bank statement, something that indicates that your money already in the bank. A lot of the time, especially working with the foreign buyers, I understand that the money could be outside of the country. That does not allow you to make a legitimate offer. Well, you can present an offer, but a lot of sellers would look at it and say, look, unfortunately, we're gonna sell the property to somebody else, or we're gonna continue looking for the buyer simply because your money are not here in the US. Why is it important? Because it could take a long time in order to bring the money here in the US. Different countries have different rules as far as how much money could be sent in once, but this is very important to make sure that when we're starting the search, you have the money here in the United States bank, and you could show the seller proof that you have all of the money over there in the bank. That's what happens with the cash transactions. Now, if you don't have cash, if you don't have enough money to purchase the property outright without getting any loans, so it means that we need to start with pre-approval letter. So what is pre-approval letter? So that's just the financial document that you would obtain from the mortgage lender, from the mortgage broker, from somebody who's qualified to provide you money for the purchase of the property, from the bank, for example. Those institutions, those financial institutions, they're going to request you to provide them lots of different documents like your proof of funds, your bank statements, your tax returns, your paycheck stubs, the proof that you have a job, and so on and so forth. And with all of those documents, the financial institution will come to conclusion that based on your financial health, you will be able to receive the loan of $1 million if you, for example, put $200,000. So this letter, this proof of funds, would be absolutely necessary for us to be taken seriously when we put offers together and when we are looking to purchase the property. Now, what kind of loans are over there? There's plethora of different loans. I think one of the common misconceptions that I would like to address over here is that a lot of people think that you absolutely need 20% down payment in order to purchase real estate, which can be further from the truth. Depending on your financial health, depending on what kind of documents do you have, how exactly do you earn your income, and so on and so forth. Sometimes you can start as low as 0% down payment. This is not happening on a regular basis. I get it, but this is a possibility. If you have a steady job, I've seen people that have a very steady job, W-2 job, getting 0% loan. Whether or not this loan allows you to actually be competitive for the house, that's the second question. But the loan is something that you could obtain sometimes with a 0% down. More realistically, if everything checks out with your taxes, you would be looking at 3.5% down. That's not a lot of money. That's not a lot of money. That's $30,000 on $1 million home. That's definitely not a lot of money. You do need to take into consideration that there's going to be some closing costs that would be associated with a transaction. Depending on what kind of loan you're getting, those closing costs could be another 1 to 2%, but that actually depends. So please don't make a mistake. Please don't think that, well, I don't have a 20% down payment, so I'm just not going to go for it. I'm just not going to buy the house. Talk to the qualified mortgage professional who will be able to look into your finances a little bit deeper and give you an answer. Yes, you can buy the house, or no, you cannot buy the house. And even if you get rejected, even if you hear that, no, unfortunately, today, based on your income, based on your job, you cannot buy the house, it is still very, very helpful to have this conversation and know for sure what you need to do in order to be able to purchase the house in 3 months, in 6 months, in a year, and so on and so forth. If you need recommendations for the mortgage brokers, please feel free to let me know. I'd be happy to do it because this is the part of my business, working very, very closely with real estate brokers, real estate lenders that would be able to provide you lending, to provide you money to purchase the property. So if you have questions as it pertains to the lending, let me know. I'd be happy to recommend you 2-3 incredible lenders. As far as what kind of loans are out there, once again, there's plethora of different options. As far as what could be required, depending on what kind of loan you're going to be getting, the documents that you're going to be requested are going to be different as well. If you have a W-2 job, a lot of the time it would be a very, very straightforward loan that would just require your paycheck stubs, bank statements, and so on and so forth. If you have your own business, or if you are an independent contractor and you receive 1099 in the end of the year, or rather in the beginning of the year, then you could be required to provide tax returns. But once again, those are very, very specific questions that could be discussed with the mortgage lender, and I have a couple of great people to recommend to you. But the important point over here, and one of the important bits that I really wanted to emphasize here, is that I would not recommend for you to get in a car and go see houses without having a good understanding what can you purchase. In other words, a lot of people would look at this situation and say, oh, you know what, I got 750 credit score, I got really good credit, I have a job, so I should be able to qualify for the house, so let's just look for the houses for $1 million, just to find out later on that they've forgotten something in their credit profile and they're not going to be able to qualify. And that could end up wasting a lot of time. And more importantly, that could end up setting you up against this whole idea of purchasing real estate. It would feel like this process sucks because you spend so much time driving around, getting excited about homes, talking about them with your wife, with your kids, with your husband, mom, grandma, and so on and so forth, just to find out that, oh, never mind, we can't do it. This is a very disappointing experience. I would definitely recommend you guys not ever do it, and just follow this recommendation. Start with getting pre-approval letter or getting the money that you're going to be using as a cash money into the US. That's the great time for you guys to actually start getting in the car, hitting up the real estate agents. Well, I mean, you could always hit up the real estate agents before just to get a clear understanding of where you stand. But this is number one advice that I can give you when you start looking for the homes. Let's make sure that you're actually qualified so nobody wastes their time. Number two, and this is something that I actually think is probably different about my approach compared to the approach of some other people. And this is the analysis of the lifestyle. What is it that I mean by this? Well, in order for me to be able to help you, in order for me to be able to help you understand what could be a good purchase for you, I really need to know a little bit more about you. I really need to know, how does your life look like right now? Where do you go to work? Do you have kids? Do you not have kids? Are you single? Are you married? Do you have somebody that you want to spend a lot of time with? Maybe you have some hobbies. Maybe you want to play soccer and it's important for you to be right next to the stadium. Maybe you're a basketball fan or an opera fan, or maybe you're somebody that needs to be at work every morning for 6 days a week, and the commute could be something that's very important to you. So, in other words, in order for me to be able to help you out, and quite frankly, in order for you to be able to make a right decision on what kind of property you want to purchase, you really need to analyze your lifestyle. So, you really need to put everything together and kind of have this full story about who you are and how do you see real estate how do you see real estate positively contributing to your life? Why is this important? Well, because this is number one reason why you're even looking for real estate. Because if it's not going to make your life any better, I mean, forget about it. You can check out, you can go drink beer right now if this is something that's going to make your life better. But out of my experience, I can tell you that purchasing real estate and owning real estate is not just wealth building tool. Needless to say that purchasing real estate and owning it here in the US is the biggest wealth building tool of all. But I think number one reason why people actually look into buying real estate is because it could actually positively contribute to your life. In other words, it could make your life better. So let's just see how exactly we could make your life better by finding you the property that will work for you. So you would really need to have a good understanding of that. Just as I said, the analysis of this question is going to include all of those factors. How much time do you spend at home? When do you need to travel to work? Do you work from home? Do you work in a specific location? How many more years would you spend working in this industry or in this office? If you have kids, a lot of the time, one of the main reasons why people move in Los Angeles and overall in the US is the school districts. Everybody wants to make sure their kids are getting great education. And the school districts here in the US work in such a way where they're assigned to certain properties. That's how taxes are being distributed. And long story short, you really want to make sure that the school district that is associated with your house is a decent one. However, it is important to understand that a lot of the time, people overthink this particular issue. Understanding what age your kids are right now and how many years they're going to spend in school is very, very crucial, simply because kids spend a lot of time in elementary school here in the US educational system, only a few years in the middle school, and then substantial amount in a high school as well. So understanding that the elementary school would probably be the most important one if you have the kids that are preschool or maybe very young or maybe first or second grade. That probably would be the most important element in analyzing the schools. Once again, if your kids are a little bit older, then maybe the high school would be the determining factor. But don't get hung up with all of the school districts being on the same level. It is very difficult to find properties that would be located in the school districts that would have all 9s and 10s. It is an ideal that we want to strive for, but it is not necessarily practical, not realistic all the time. So from there, having a really good understanding of why we're buying and why do we need to buy actually right now? But that's another question you can ask yourself. Why today? Why do you want to buy a house today? Maybe it is better for you to do it next year. Maybe not. So this is one of the questions that you should ask yourself as well. But from here, having a good understanding of why we're buying and where we're buying, we need to start narrowing down our search. So we're moving from a very complex and very big idea, overwhelming idea of buying a property, and we're going to start narrowing it down. So that's how we're going to get to the results, and that's how we're going to get to the immediate response. What I mean by this is you're probably going to end up starting your search thinking that you could be in this area, that area, or many other areas. But what you're going to end up finding a little bit later, you will have a very clear preference to certain areas. And whenever you would be able to identify them, you will notice that you will start honing in your search into certain areas, into certain product types, and that's what we need. But we're still going to start very broad. And starting very broad with this is obviously geographic location. So with this geographic location, we need to understand what part of town we want to be in. So that's number one question. But from there, we're going to start narrowing things down. And if, for example, you decided that you wanted to be in area called Burbank, okay, well, Burbank is quite a substantial area. Where exactly in Burbank do you want to be? So starting from very, very big idea of where you want to be, you're going to start narrowing it down, because geographic location is only part of it. The financial condition of the property is the second element to this. So understanding where you want to be geographically, applying certain filters in your brain, how much are you willing to spend, and where are you going to be comfortable, is going to set up another level of understanding what part of town you want to be in. School districts, that's the other part that would need to be taken into consideration. Certain things like crime, for example, you are welcome to look into the crime maps. Sometimes they're deceiving, and when you look at the crime, you really need to concentrate on a very, very serious violent crime. And if you can, try to get a historical data, because a lot of the time, there could be some crime that would happen in a great areas that would throw off the crime score. Certain websites that would provide you this type of service, that would provide you a crime score. So sort of like a walkability score, like how walkable this place is. It's just related as it relates to crime. So when you analyze that, make sure that you get a really deep understanding of this. And I've suggested this before. Nobody has ever done it, but you are more than welcome to pick up the phone, make a phone call to the local police department, and to get a good understanding of what kind of crime happens in this area. Is this a difficult area? Is this a scary area? Or maybe it's absolutely fine. So the investigation and this research, in the end of the day, is going to be falling on you. I would be here to help you, to guide you through this process, and to maybe help you understand where can you get this information, how can you put it together. But a lot of research in this process is going to be falling on you, and this is something that obviously you would need to know. Historical analysis of prices in the neighborhood. This is an important question. What happened to the prices since pandemic? The prices before the pandemic. How fast are prices growing here in this part of town? So analyzing why do you want to be in certain area and what area of town you want to be. You need to take that into consideration as well. And you need to see that there's a positive tendency to the price growth. Once again, we're moving through the stages, and real estate is moving up and down. Here in Los Angeles, mostly it's an upward trend. But you want to make sure that the area that you purchase in real estate is not just safe, it has a great school district, but it also has a proven track record, which means that the prices in this area have been growing consistently. How do you do it? Well, you ask me, when we're going to be looking at specific properties, it's not going to happen to 59 properties that are available on a market. But when we're going to start honing down on certain properties, we're going to run very, very detailed analysis of the comps, of everything that's selling in the neighborhood, of everything that's sold in the neighborhood, to show you whether or not the property that you're buying right now is actually worth the money that you would be paying for it. So all in all, when you are analyzing the part of town that you want to be in, this is quite a big task for you. But this is something that we would need to talk about. This is something that we would need to discuss. And this is something that we would need to put together to make sure that the part of town that you're attracted to is actually worth you being there. So this is one of the big issues. And later on, through the process, you wouldn't even think about it. You'll just tell me, oh, I want to live in Toluca Lake. I want to live in Beverly Hills, Santa Monica, or Santa Clarita. But before you come to this conclusion, there is a lot of analysis that you would need to do. And I'm here to help you with this, of course. But I just wanted you to know about that. So from there, from the global search, now we're going to start narrowing it down to actually the subject, to actually the real estate subject, so the house to the condo. And when we talk about geographic location, we're not just talking about the location within Los Angeles County, for example. We're not just comparing Burbank versus Glendale versus Studio City. Now, when we're narrowing down to a certain area, let's just say we are in Studio City. Now we're going to start narrowing the geographic location down. Do you want to be above Ventura Boulevard? Do you want to be below Ventura Boulevard? So now we're going to start narrowing this down. And when we look at geographic location, once again, the area might be great, but there's no such a thing. When we talk about real estate, it is very important not to generalize too much. Here's what I mean by this. There is certain bad pockets in Beverly Hills. I mean, they're not bad, but they're not worth the money that you're paying for them. And there's some great pockets in Inglewood, believe it or not. If you would see certain homes in Inglewood or in Compton, you would never believe that they're located in somewhat of a marginal neighborhoods. But so you really need to understand that when we are looking at real estate is hyper local. From here, we're going to make sure that we analyze every single element of the property. If, for example, we are looking for geographic location or location in general, it's not just where the property is located within the neighborhood. It also is what's located around the property. It could be a great street, but if you're right next to the commercial corridor, that would negatively affect the value. And this is something that you absolutely need to know. If you live right next to a plaza, if you live right next to a commercial corridor, to a body shop or something like that, even though the street might be great and few houses over, well, that's the case when the smart home is actually smarter than you. Hey, Google, turn on office lights. Let's just see if this works. There you go. There you go. Sorry about that. That's the case when the house is actually smarter than you. So when we talk about analyzing the location, we're not just talking a part of town. We're talking a specific location within the part of town. Even when we're talking about condominiums, it is important to understand where is the condominium located. It could be a great street. It could be a great neighborhood, school districts and everything else. But it could be a condominium right next to the elevator. That would be a negative factor to this. Or maybe a trash compactor or something like that. So even when we analyze individual objects, we need to make sure that the location of this object is great, not just within the municipality of Los Angeles, but in a community as well, because that plays roles. That plays very, very important role. When we look at specific real estate objects, when we look at homes and condominiums, we obviously need to analyze the price of this. We need to analyze how long has this product been on the market, because it gives you different possibilities and gives you different opportunities when you are looking at the property that has been in the market for 15 days or 15 minutes. A lot of the time, we would find objects that would be on the market for quite some time. Maybe there is some flexibility there, maybe not, but that definitely puts the ball on your court. You would be able to make that determination, not the seller, because clearly seller hasn't had any activity or maybe any offers, maybe something happened, but that tells you something if the property has been in the market for quite some time. So all of those elements would need to be taken into consideration. And that will allow us, analyzing all of those elements and putting them together, will allow us to understand how to structure the purchase agreement in the best way possible. Because in the end of the day, if you cannot come to an agreement with a seller, you're not buying this home. As simple as that. So we need to make sure that we get a lot of advantages by actually still providing something that works for the seller at the same time. That's the only way to put the deal together. If you're here with a combative attitude, thinking that we're just going to screw somebody over, we're going to take this house away from them, that is not likely to happen. We would need to find a way to work together with the seller, and understanding the geographic location and understanding all of the elements of this property is a crucial element of structuring the deal. Speaking of structuring the deal, the next point in this conversation would be actually putting together the contract. So let me have a sip of coffee because I'm starting to lose my steam. And I'm back. I actually have my favorite Los Angeles Starbucks cup. Hopefully you guys are drinking some coffee as well, because that's a long conversation that we're having. So now we are talking about the stage of a transaction where we know where we want to be. We have seen some homes. We have found something that works for us. We have analyzed the market. We have analyzed this specific property. Financially and otherwise, it makes sense for us. So now we're actually ready to put an offer together. And it's funny because in my draft, I'm saying that I would give you guys a draft of a purchase agreement so you would familiarize yourself with it before we actually put an offer together. You can scratch that, because that was about 5 years ago when I was still young in my career. I would never give you a draft of a purchase contract, because I know that 99 times out of 100, you will not even open it. So understanding that you're not going to read the contract before we actually found the property, we would just need to make sure that we can dedicate a little bit of time to talk about the contract when we found the property and when we're actually ready to put an offer. So offer is basically a formal official proposal to the seller, which will say, Mr. Seller, me, a buyer, I would like to purchase your property for this amount of money, and I would like to offer you certain conditions. This is how long would be the escrow. This is how many days I would have to conduct inspections. This is how many days I will have to make sure I can get the loan. This is how many days I will have in order to confirm the value of the property, which is an appraisal contingency. So the offer will have a comprehensive proposal to the seller. In order for us, just as we said before, to substantiate an offer, we need to show the seller our financial ability to purchase this property, which happens in a few different ways. If we're buying it with a cash, we need to show the full amount of money being in a bank here in the US. So that's called proof of funds, bank statement, something that will show the seller that you're serious and you're real. If you're buying the property with a loan, you would need a pre-approval letter from the bank or mortgage broker, and you would need a bank statement as well to show that you have enough money for the down payment and closing costs. With those things, your offer would be taken seriously. Now, a lot of the time nowadays, I would not have face-to-face conversations with my clients. Not everybody wants to do business this way. It's post-COVID time. A lot of the time, you as a purchaser, you would want to talk about it over the phone or on Zoom, and that's perfectly fine. But for me as a broker, it is crucial. It is very, very important to have this conversation with you prior to you signing the document, because I want to make sure that you understand what you're signing. There's going to be 16 pages. That's how long the purchase contract is. There's going to be some additional documents that will clarify the relationships that we have, me being your official representative, and so on and so forth. But the contract is very important because contractually, you're making certain promises to the seller. And seller, if he or she signs it, would agree to those promises, and the seller would be making certain promises as well. So for me, it is important that you understand what is it that protects you, what kind of rights do you have, how much time do you have to perform inspections, what can you do, what can't you do, can you lose your deposit, how exactly is it protected. One of the main responsibilities that I have nowadays in the real estate world is making sure that your deposit is protected. One of the other responsibilities that I would have is making sure that you are protected and you're not going to get sued after the transaction is closed. So those are the things that would definitely need to be taken into consideration. Just as I said, a lot of the time, people would not be meeting with me face to face, even though I'm very much open to it, to show you the contract line by line. At least when we go through this procedure for the first time, when you're putting your first offer, I would love to have a conversation with you over the phone, face to face, doesn't matter. But I want to make sure that you have a very, very clear understanding of what are you signing. Later on, I'll be frank with you. A lot of the time, I would just tell you, hey, we're gonna have 25-day escrow, 10-day inspection contingency, no appraisal, 15-day loan. That's not gonna sound like gibberish to you because we would have already gone through this at least once. So having a good understanding of how the contracts work will allow you to speed up this process. And when you see the property, you would be able to just discuss terms of your potential purchase offer with me, making sure that you can just get on the phone, sign it very, very quick, and present it to the seller. You will gain a lot of confidence from understanding the contract, from asking a lot of questions. I encourage those questions. This is precisely why I do this. This is why I do the seminars, that you will be able to know how this process works, and all of the questions that you would have would be answered. But there's certain things that I would really need you to know. One of the most important parts about the contract, and one of the most important terms in the contract, is contingencies. What the hell is contingencies? I mean, it sounds crazy, right? It sounds, what is it? So contingency is the provision of the contract that protects parties. There is buyer's contingencies, seller's contingencies. As a buyer, most likely you will have several main contingencies. Your main contingency would be an inspection contingency, which allows you to perform any and all investigations on a property, which means that you would be able to bring a qualified, certified inspector that will take a look at all of the elements of the house, all of the systems of the house, the roof, the foundation, the chimney, the HVAC system, and so on and so forth, and determine whether or not those are functional, whether or not those could be close to the life expectancy, past life expectancy, and so on and so forth. Overall, just how good the house is, how well does the house function. So inspection contingency allows you to take a very close look at the condition of the house and decide for yourself whether or not you want to go ahead with this transaction. It actually will allow you as well to request either repairs or credit for those repairs or price reduction. Realistically, nobody will ask for the repairs because it brings up another level of complexity to a transaction, which you just don't want to have. It will most likely delay the transaction. So those are the negative things that you're probably not going to end up dealing with. So you will be most likely asking the seller to either reduce the price or to provide you credit towards closing costs. Both of those things are possible. Most of the time it would be credit towards closing costs, but depending on the amount of money. In other words, that is a possibility for you to renegotiate the price after you do the inspection. And in case you find out that something's wrong with the house, you could either say goodbye, sayonara, Mr. Seller, I'm not going to buy this house anymore, and get your deposit back. That's the most important part. Or you get to renegotiate and you get to ask for some money back. And sometimes the seller will provide you some credit or price reduction. Sometimes the seller will tell you, no, I'm not going to give you anything. But at least you do have this right to ask, and you do have this right to walk away if the seller's response is not something that you are comfortable with. But those are one of the main elements in a contract. Out of the contingencies, out of things that protect you, we just spoke about inspection contingency, and you can find a lot of content on my YouTube channel, actually, where I talk about contingencies, how exactly they work, what do you need to do to remove them, and so on and so forth. Looking at it from both, from the seller, from the buyer standpoint. So there's a lot of content that you would be able to find on my channel, both in English and in Russian. Some of it is even in Ukrainian. Not a lot, though. But contingencies, among the other contingencies, we should look into appraisal contingency, which is the possibility for you to, well, it's actually a requirement, not a possibility. It's a requirement by the bank, by the lender, to bring out a qualified appraiser, a person that is not interested in one or the other outcome of a transaction, and it's supposed to be unbiased. And this person will be paid by you, but this person will provide his or her opinion of value. In other words, they would look at the property and they will say, you're buying it for $1 million. I think it's actually worth $1 million. Or maybe it's worth more, or maybe it's worth less. But this is a possibility for you to actually see the results of this inspection and maybe ask the seller for a price reduction as well. The other possibility and the other contingency that you will have is the loan contingency. So this is something that will allow you to get out of the deal if for one reason or another you're not going to end up getting the loan. So this is something that's important in order for you to be protected, in order for you to be able to get your deposit back if something goes wrong with the transaction. If you actually cannot finish the transaction and the lender says, no, I'm not going to give you the loan. So you need to make sure you can get your money back. That's important. What else I want to talk about here? So there is a technology called DocuSign, which we will be using most of the time. You've probably worked with it. You probably are familiar with it. It just allows you to open up your email and sign in with your electronic signature. So that allows me and you not having to get together for every little signature, every little document that would need to be printed. It saves lots of trees. It's a beautiful, beautiful technology. But the downside to it is that you're probably not going to end up reading any of your documents. So it is important still to take a look at them. And if you have any questions about them, please ask your broker, ask your realtor, so they would be able to give you a really good understanding of what is it that you're dealing with and why you're looking at this document. But the DocuSign is a technology that we would be using most of the time in order to speed up this process. And after that, I think it's important to talk about the process of presenting an offer to the seller. When you present your offer to the seller, you need to know that there's four possible outcomes, four possible things that could happen. Number one thing is the seller could very well not respond to your offer at all. Seller does not have a legal responsibility to respond to your offer, believe it or not. Number two possibility is seller could respond to your offer with a rejection. They could say thank you, but not thank you. We are not going to sell you this house. We're going to sell it to somebody else, or maybe we're not going to sell it to anyone. But sellers don't have to respond to your offer, and they could very well say no. Number three is the counteroffer. That happens when the seller would take a look at your offer and say, thank you very much, Mr. Buyer. I appreciate your offer of $1 million, but I'm willing to sell it to you for $1,050,000. So the seller will give you a counteroffer. And number four, and that's actually the outcome we're all looking for, and that's something that I would be working on diligently, trying to make sure that we've crossed all of the T's and dotted all of the I's, in order to get to the outright confirmation and outright approval of your offer. So seller can just take your offer the way it is. And this is something that we will be working towards. But it is important to understand that there's 4 possible scenarios over here. Same with your request for repairs. Same with renegotiations that you may or may not have as a result of your inspection. The seller could reject it, seller could ignore it, seller could give you counteroffer, or seller can take it the way it is and give you the price reduction or credit towards closing costs. So that's the process of presenting an offer. A lot of work goes into presenting an offer. A lot of work goes into understanding how exactly can we appeal to the seller. I'll give you an example. One of the offers that I've put together a couple of weeks ago, I had to dig really, really deep to see who the seller was, to Google everything. I had to go to LA Times library to actually get a couple of articles about the seller to get a good understanding and good idea of who this person is. And that allows us to appeal in a certain manner to that person. It allows us sometimes to tell the story of your life. Who are you? Who are the buyers? Why are you going to be the best buyer for this house? Why are you so excited about it? So a lot of the time, it will come down to actually putting together the whole presentation, because it's not just throwing the paper at the listing agent, somebody who represents the seller. It's actually finding this whole package that will be able to appeal to the seller in a certain way. That will be able to show you as the buyer as somebody who's absolutely best, somebody who's absolutely best for this house. I've had times in my career where my clients got the property and their offer wasn't even the highest one. I was just able to build really, really good connection with the listing agent. I was able to present my buyers in a very particular, in a very peculiar manner, which was very, very beneficial for them. And we were able to get the property even though we weren't the highest bidder. So somebody was able to give the seller more money. In the end of the day, it's the people's business. It's not just zeros and ones and numbers and dollars. It's the people's business. People want to do business with somebody that they can trust. And this is a huge part of my job. This is actually the biggest part of my job, to make sure that I can present myself really well and I can present you really well, making sure that the seller has a right understanding and willing to trust us and willing to sell us the house. And the idea and the goal of mine would be to build such a connection that we could get really good understanding of what is it that we can offer to the seller. Maybe additionally, one of the deals that I will be closing in a couple of weeks, we were able to get the property because we were a little bit more flexible. Here's what I mean by this. My clients were able to offer the seller a certain amount of money, and somebody was able to offer more money, but my clients were able to structure the deal in such a way where the seller can remain in the property for a certain amount of time after the escrow in order to be able to move out. That allowed the seller to feel like we are the right kind of people for this house, because we're not rushing them and we're actually working with them, we're cooperating with them, and we're being very respectful to the fact that they've spent 30 or 40 years in the house. This is not that easy to move out of the house after that many years in it. It has a lot of memories, it has a lot of stuff. So people need to have a proper procedure of saying goodbye to the house. We're able to cooperate with the seller in that matter, and they agreed to sell my clients the house, even though somebody was able to give them more money. So it's not always about money. It is about the possibility to find the middle ground. With this said, we are trying to get to outright confirmation of our offer. And as soon as our offer is signed, then you're in escrow. Then you're in absolute control. And if you're going to be sticking to your promise to the seller that you just made contractually, you're golden. Nobody else can buy this house. And this is the position where we want to be. We want to be in a position of control where we are in escrow, and now nobody else can buy this house but you. You just need to stick to your end of the bargain. You just need to make sure that you're on time with your contingency removals, with your inspections. But that's a topic of a separate conversation. This is something that I'm discussing and talking to people when it gets to the escrow, because escrow procedures is a separate conversation. It is a procedure of transferring property from one person to another. But this is something that already happens after you found your home, after you've put an offer, and after you've gotten your offer accepted. That's the happy procedure. That's not a conversation that I don't want to distract you too much. We are in a process of just starting to look for properties, and I want to make sure that you guys have been given an understanding of how this process works. That's the main goal, and that's the reason why I'm doing this. I know that a couple of people watched today, and once again I will be putting this video online as well. I'll be posting it. But I just wanted to say thank you guys for being present over here. I know it is overwhelming. I've gone through this myself. Even after being in real estate for years and years, it was very overwhelming for me to buy first investment property. It was out of state. It was overwhelming to purchase the property for myself and my family. But I can tell you one thing. For me, it was totally worth it. And I know that it would be worth it for you as well. Purchasing real estate here in the US is just another step for a lot of us, a lot of people that have immigrated to this country. It's a stepping stone of establishing yourself in this country, of feeling a little bit more confident about tomorrow. And that's what it's done to me. I'm incredibly happy at the place where I'm at right now. And I really hope that we will get a chance to get to that point with you guys as well. With that, I wanted to say thank you guys for participating today. This type of presentations usually don't gather crowds, so I'm not surprised that there were several people over here, but not hundreds. That's how it usually works. It's a very, very specific topic, and the majority of people are either not ready or they're not qualified. But I'm glad that some people actually stuck around throughout the whole life. So just want to tell you guys, thank you very much. With all of the questions you'll have, my contact information is available everywhere. If you're here on YouTube, you can just click on information about me, and you'll see all of the contacts over there. But just wanted to say thank you guys. I really hope that sooner or later we will get to the point of finding homes for you guys, and that we will make it a fun process. So keep faith. Things will be good, and I'll talk to you guys. Hopefully, I'll see you guys, participants of this live, in a couple of days, when I will be talking to an attorney about an issue that is the next one. When you're purchasing the house, how to own the house, how to hold title to real estate, to make sure that you don't get screwed with taxes, to make sure you don't get screwed if you or your spouse dies, and things like that. It's not always a positive type of conversation, but it is the one that really needs to be had. With that, thank you so much, guys. I'm going to finish on this, and I'm hopefully going to be talking to you very, very soon. And I'll be looking forward to be helping you find that awesome piece of real estate that you guys would be happy in.